Welcome, my friends, to the Sage Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, returning to the show are my very special guests, Elisa E. and Elana Freeland. Elisa is a survivor of the MK Ultra Mind Control Program. She has authored 2 books titled Our Life Beyond MK Ultra, where Elisa details her involvement in the program. She offers a rare glimpse into how the dark world of trauma-based mind control created her multiple personality disorder and how, once programmed, she was used in government, military, intelligence, religious, and corporate organizations to carry out the occult agenda of control and domination through sex and murder. Elana is a Waldorf school pioneer, storyteller, lecturer, and writer. She has written for alternative publications all her adult life, giving non-mainstream issues a voice. Her current book, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, examines how chemtrails and technology like HAARP support the controller's efforts to dominate humanity. Elana has also ghostwritten and edited several books on diverse topics, including stories of survivors of MK Ultra and ritual abuse. With tonight's show, Elisa and Elana will take us through how the Matrix is implementing highly sophisticated ways to control humanity through synthetic biology, artificial intelligence, and electromagnetic frequencies to neutralize the true human consciousness. And to kick the show off, Elisa recaps her experience and background as an MK Ultra survivor. Let's take a listen. You're going to be talking about biotech, cognitive tech, artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, and other topics which are going to be, I think, very, very interesting to the audience. Now, some of the audience is familiar with your story, going back to the previous 2 shows, but if you can just give the audience maybe a brief explanation of your background and then how your experiences have led you into the research that you're going to cover with us tonight.
Well, I'm a survivor of a concerted effort of mind control perpetrated by various military, intelligence, corporate, religious institutions and organizations from the time, at the very least, from the time I was in the womb. In other words, it was a planned operation under a program that hurled many, many victims and survivors. Known as the umbrella way back when was known as MK Ultra. This program has morphed over the years, or the various programs that fall under that umbrella have morphed over the years to move into remote mind control, for lack of a better word. And in the process, I was born in 1962, and in the process of my use, I was moved from physical people handlers into, in the 80s, as the earliest I have recollection of, but in the 80s, I was moved into the remote programming as well. In other words, my handlers were oftentimes, nobody was around. It was being done from a remote location due to implants and so forth. Currently, and we'll get into this hopefully a little more towards the end of the program after we preface with a lot of information. For some time now, I've been experiencing many things that are coming across from what's in my body, and I call it nanotechnology, even nanobots, and also what's being triggered remotely by my interpretation of it, due to very particular experiences, is that there is sometimes someone at a monitor, a person, and that sometimes things are being set off cyclically or on certain schedules through an AI computer. So that's where I'm at today as a survivor. That's what I'm dealing with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So what led you then to go from the point that you just discussed or you just explained into some of these areas? Because some of these areas they're very technical in nature. It takes a lot of research to really get your head wrapped around what this stuff is about. So as an example, biotech.
Okay. Well, the way I see it is, this is kind of the way my whole life has been. I experience things, and perhaps I experience them for weeks or months, and in many cases years, and then the information, by talking about something that I'm experiencing, the information will often come to me, or links or resources and networking. And what happened was, particularly in relation to what I'm going to talk about today, it's more about what's going on remote, because I'm experiencing changes in my physical body. And I was speaking about this with Elana, one of the few people I talked to about it, and trying to explain things without having any technical sense about it. In other words, explaining it from the experiential view. And this has been the way my life has been. And then I would get information and I would read things, and within those articles, and some of these I'm going to get very specific later on when we get into optogenetics, I'm experiencing these things consciously. So I'm having an interaction where in my mind's eye, or however you want to word it, in a very conscious state, I'm interacting with something. I'm getting flashes and glimpses of something, and I'm now finding that information in the public domain being introduced.
Based upon your experience, and as you're doing your research, you're finding that things are resonating. There are things that you feel like that you understand in a way?
It's being explained what's happening to me.
Okay.
It's being explained, and for whatever reason, I'm witnessing it on a very conscious level so that I can make sense of it.
And I see Elisa as being like a cosmonaut or an astronaut into this area of synthetic biology that we are now entering. And as long as we have we've got to stop thinking of expertise as someone with a PhD. We've got to start thinking of people who have had experiences and are able to cognize what those experiences are and tie them to the information coming out. And Elisa is one of those people.
I think the other thing, Elana, is that as Elisa was speaking, that was running through my mind is I think we have to stop thinking in terms of a lot of this stuff is not here today and it's sometime out in the future. And, as I was going through the email that Elisa sent me in preparation for this show, I mean, what struck me was that this has been going on for a very, very long time, and that this is not some startup. I mean, they're getting more and more advanced, yes, but they're not just getting going with biotech and cognitive tech and artificial intelligence, that this stuff has been a staple within our reality and our lives for a very long time. Am I wrong?
That's exactly how I'd put it. And let me, from my perspective of coming out of as an insider and being raised in this is how it works. They are the ones that covertly and quietly leak the actual bits and pieces of technology to the public domain in the sense of not in articles and so forth at that point. I'm talking about leaking it to someone, a scientist or a lab somewhere. What happens is, I mean, this is to me, very, very much scheduled. And they start doing that, it starts being worked on in the private sector quietly, okay? What they know is with this technology and all of this stuff, whether it's biotechnology, AI, quantum computing, whether it's nanotech or synthetic biology, it's all linked. It's all part of the same monster. And what they know is that there's a threshold in the public domain. Once it may take decades, okay? Once the threshold is crossed where there's no going back, it's now been in the public domain, it's now activated, they're processing, they're reaching successful experiments and producing what they need to produce. At that point, you'll start to see the public domain articles, the stuff that I'm reading from today. Now, what that means is it's long been there. Now they're just publicly talking about it, telling you what they've been able to do, and then hypothesizing on where we're going to be at certain times. This is all by agenda plan. It is scheduled, and that's how everything comes out of what I call the dark or the black on black, is they're the ones who bring it forward very quietly, and then they sit and wait. And once that threshold's crossed, there's no going back. We're not going to pull it from the public domain. It takes care and runs itself at that point. And that's where we're at with this kind of technology.
But we're talking about the people behind the curtain. They are way ahead of what is being disseminated out into the public domain.
Correct. And they're in control
Yeah.
of what is being disseminated out into the public domain. But it doesn't, they're not going to let these kind of articles start showing up until it's crossed the threshold. Does that make sense?
Yes. What I was getting from what you were just explaining is that there is this conditioning aspect to kind of mainstream this technology to a certain degree. The only thing I'm struggling with is why. Why get it out into the public domain? What difference does it make? They've been doing this stuff covertly. They've been impacting humanity ever since whenever. What's the purpose of getting people on board with it?
It's control. We give consent all the time. We give consent to everything all the time. We're not, in my opinion, we're not in this position because they're stronger than us. We're in this position because giving information in a certain way and taking you down a certain road with it, which to me is disinformation, okay? It has tons of truth. It has far more truth than untruths. By controlling the information, not only what goes out, how it goes out, where it takes you, and when, that is the control, and then we give consent.
Well, and that goes back to what I always say, knowledge is power. Scientia est potentia. And they hold the reins on the power, just like a god in the sky, holding the reins on the horses that draw across the earth from sunrise to sunset. They see themselves as mythical gods among men. And I was thinking, Elisa, one thing that occurred to me is when they finally have decided we've crossed the line, and now they can disseminate it to the public. And usually it'll be in the future tense, but not to be deceived by that. They will then open it to the consciousness of millions. And that in itself will give reality to what they have worked on in the darkness. And now it's in broad day. And it's a tremendous boost to their power to do it that way.
Exactly. When people talk about co-creating, it's what's going on in our minds, what we're accepting, what we're taking in as truth. So it's the ultimate control because they're the ones bringing it forward, whether they tell you that or not. They're the ones bringing it into the public domain. Just as she said, our consciousness is extremely powerful. And if you don't know that they're the ones disseminating, if you don't know that this is malevolent, if you don't know those things, you are, in a way, that's where the consent comes in.
Right. And the manifestation of their end game, they need our consciousness to be steered in that direction.
Exactly.
Right? Essentially, and I've had other shows on this, my way of explaining it is they're taking our thought energy and they are taking it and they're steering it and pushing it in their direction where they want to go, to the reality that they want to manifest. And so by doing that, it's going to speed things along and make these things become, and secure it, and make these things become reality.
I'd like to just interject something from my book too here, because this was, it was like I was ready to shout it from the rooftops in deep deprogramming. For years I did. And I kept feeling like I wasn't getting it across. And I'm just going to go ahead and read I'm just going to start part way through this. This is from Our Life Beyond MK Ultra, and I have book 1 and book 2, and this is from book 2, and I just lost my page. Hang on a second. It's called The Transhumanist Superhero. The entertainment value of the superhero and villain may seem innocuous at first, but like many aspects of societal indoctrination, it is far more sinister and reaches much farther back than modern-day comic book characters hitting the big screen. The superhero and villain are the ancient archetypes of stories told by people throughout human history. That the same archetypal stories and characters jump throughout historical time from civilization to civilization as demigods, neither fictional nor mythical, is proof of a reality that cannot be denied. In other words, the longevity alone is a testament to their actual existence, and that they were viewed as gods is understandable, but these demigods are anything but. If it were about the reach and magnitude of ancient Sumer, it would be accepted as truth. But despite all the artifacts supporting the existence of demigod interaction with the human race here on Earth, their existence is relegated to myth. The present-day transhumanist desire to be, quote, superhuman, end quote, is the same theme with the same characters. The transhumanist movement is like the old theocratic religion supported by slavery. All the talk about uniting tech and neurology and biology to create the ultimate human cyborg is just another version of the old repackaged demigod stories. Same program, same goal. The next level of subjugation, the selling of the individual human soul mind by subsuming the benevolent aspect unique to humanity. The next level in this space-time is to remove the choice that has been available to humanity, conscious choice, without individuals recognizing the ability to choose is no longer an option. By combining technology and the esoteric, the end-time agenda will be achieved. And I want to reread this line because this is what haunted me, and I couldn't say it enough when I began deep deprogramming. Conscious choice will be removed without individuals recognizing that the ability to choose is no longer an option. And what I mean by that is it's happening. People are being assimilated. Now, I know people who cannot see what's going on. They cannot. It's not about giving them information. They've given consent. They're involved with the technology. They're involved with some of the things we're going to talk about here today, I hope. The computer screen, the plasma screen, the smartphone, the ionized plasma atmosphere that Elana can tell you all about, and she's writing about currently in a different way, beyond the space fence and beyond her first book in the chemtrail book. We're in it, okay? What was done to me in 1970 and 1980 is above ground and in full force, okay? It's working on the masses, remote mind control.
Let me make sure that I understand where you're going with this. So the population, the masses, or the vast majority of the masses, have merged with the artificial intelligence then. In other words, they do not know that they don't have their consciousness. Essentially operating under the AI, they are, in many cases, defending the AI. In other words, you get into a discussion with somebody, they will debate and argue with you. The fact that they won't or cannot see the issues and the problems that are going on, which are so blatant. They can't see the lies. They can't see the deception. They are distracted by the most inane things in life. Is that where we're going with this, Elisa? Is this what you're saying, that there's an AI that has essentially, it's consuming the population?
Basically, yes. And what I would say is we're still in the phase of if a person, I mean, there's still victimization going on here, okay? I don't always look at someone and think, oh, you're just not willing to see. I've had interactions with people for years. They can't. They keep getting the same information. They even come to me seeking it. And, you know, I don't want to go too far into, on this show, the inner life part, but without the inner life, there's no way out of this. Without an incredibly deep, sincere, active inner life, day in, day out, and that means giving up some of the other things that are coming onto the scene. That is what takes people out of this. I know so many people, good people, that have been around conspiracy for decades, and they're gone. They have information out the you-know-what, had it for years, even helping with information, but they're not sovereign. It shows. If you can see and pay attention, they're not sovereign. They're not making their own decisions. And when you get back to this, what I was reading, meaning they've been working on this for, half a century or more now in the Black projects. And what I'm saying is that there are things happening where people don't know they're not choosing. They think they're making a choice.
Right.
And it's not their real, sincere, sovereign choice. Those are two different things. We can choose all day long, but what are we choosing from?
And I think what I want to bring in here, just as to understand the matrix that this assimilation of the population is depending upon, we mustn't forget that we are not just breathing an ionized atmosphere now, we are breathing in nanobots. We are breathing in synthetic biological creatures that have been genetically engineered. They are on a nanoscale. They're very tiny. We can't see them. We can only feel the symptoms after we have taken them in, and they are now in our bloodstream and going beyond the blood-brain barrier. This is how the assimilation is going to happen. This is what transhumanism is depending upon. And that's why the list of topics that Elisa wants to cover to, yes, enter us as knowledge, but we must remember this is a multi-tiered, engineered nightmare that we are being subjected to for a very different future than the past that we have known for millennia.
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing that in. And let me throw out a couple more things here on because it will get into, by the end, we'll understand all roads lead to Rome. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is a simulation of human intelligence processes by machines, especially computer systems. These processes include learning, the acquisition of information and rules for using the information, reasoning, using the rules to reach approximate or definite conclusions, and self-correction. Okay? And I'm going to jump to, since Elana brought this in, the nanotechnology.
Elisa,
yeah.
For a second here. So going back to the AI.
Yes.
Human beings, many human beings, are AI'd as we speak.
Absolutely. I'm having conscious experiences of blips of it attempting.
Well, the reason why I bring it up is because many times, and this is the conditioning that's put out there, the public believes that artificial intelligence means that you're going to have your very own robot in the future, and it's going to mow your lawn, it's going to do your dishes, it's going to go shopping for you, and all that. That's not what's going to happen. That's not going to happen, right? You are going to be the robot.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
You are the one that's going to mow the lawn, do the dishes. And that's what people do not understand. So they're on this little like futuristic type of little trip and it's being propagated, it's being put out there like that so that people think that way. In the meantime, what's happening is they're being converted from human being to AI and robot.
Correct. And so here's the definition for nanotechnology. And think about this, as I read these definitions, think about them in terms of mind control and where the black projects are, not in terms of what they're presented as in these science and technology forums that are something coming in, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Okay, so nanotechnology is the science of working with atoms and molecules to build devices, such as robots, that are extremely small. And then another version of this definition, a technology executed on the scale of less than 100 nanometers, the goal of which is to control individual atoms and molecules, especially to create computer chips and other microscopic devices. I would say nanoscopic devices. So this is what Elana is referring to. We're all filled with a variety of things thanks to the chemtrail, or whatever you want to call it, the geoengineering movement on the part of these perpetrators. So this has been going on for so long. I know it's in my body. I'm getting them out at times. I see them. I interact with them on a daily basis. I feel them. They come out. A lot of them stay in. I feel them moving to certain parts of my body. And I'm witnessing this, though, in a different kind of consciousness. And this is what I've been sharing with Elana off and on as something significant happens. For example, I'll throw in here, months ago, I had quite an episode, an understanding overnight And I wrote to her the next day and explained to her that now whatever it was had moved into my brain. I was cognizant of its presence in my brain. And I've been receiving flashes, some of which I sent pictures to you, Mike, and beyond those pictures. I mean, sometimes this is happening 3, 4, 5 nights a week. What I found in this research is the explanation of these lights inside my head, that I'm seeing them fully conscious. So in other words, with my mind's eye, I'm witnessing them going off. On occasion, they've gone off, and I eventually drift off to sleep, and I awaken with severe migraines the next day. So what I'm moving towards here, and trying to back up somewhat with the definitions and the articles, that's why I want to refer to them. It's not just me imagining this. It's me experiencing it for years, and now I'm watching as the information is being dumped with the projected future, which it's not. This is all back-engineered stuff, okay, that's been coming from the deep. And I, for some reason, as Elana has explained, and I've seen this for most of my life, I have this ability to, perhaps because of what was done to me, I don't know. Severe torture and trauma for a lifetime can change a person's sensibilities. That's what I'm bringing to the table today. And we're going to get into optogenetics, which is going to talk about the lights. I want to just read this real briefly. This is just a little excerpt from an article I picked up of nature.com, and it's about nature nanotechnology. And it says here, self-assembly is a key concept in nanotechnology and comes in a variety of forms. One approach involves the spontaneous assembly of magnetic nanoparticles in the presence of an external magnetic field. This is, however, a size limit to the approach. Ingo Rehberg, Stephen Forster, and colleagues have now shown that nanoparticles at this size limit can self-assemble in solution to form regular 1, 2, and 3-dimensional structures. Okay, so I'm just putting a background to this. This is science. They can self-replicate.
And that's what Clifford Carnicom has many papers on at his site, carnicominstitute.org, is his experiments in petri dishes with what he calls the cross-domain bacteria, which many people name Morgellons. And this is only one of the genetically engineered specimens that we are now very intimately hosting in our bloodstreams. And I think that the idea that you could have something inside you that self-replicates is pretty creepy. But on the other hand, I always remind people that we've had parasites in us for thousands of years, and we've cohabited. The question that I have, and by the way, Clifford has not answered it for me, so I'm kind of on my own. The question I have is, if there are indeed microprocessors and sensors in us, which there are on very nanoscale, along with the cross-domain bacteria, then can these things be stimulated remotely? And I think that that's what makes it clear to me that this technology that I'm studying and what Elisa is bringing forward today they're all connected. They're all connected for the same control agenda over humanity.
I would think that remote activation or stimulation is something that is an absolute must in their plan. Otherwise, why would they be doing what they're doing?
Exactly. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this stuff from and again, this DARPA article, or this DARPA, whatever it is, what I keep seeing in this over and over throughout the article is the reference to, let me just read this little quick excerpt. DARPA's initial investments in BCI, which is again the brain-computer interface, began in '74 under the close-coupled man-machine system. Later they renamed it to biocybernetics. This program investigated the application of human physiological signals, including brain signals as measured non-invasively using either EEG or MEG, which is the magnetoencephalography, to enable direct communication between humans and machines and to monitor neural states associated with vigilance, fatigue, emotions, decision-making, perception, and general cognitive ability. The program yielded notable advancements. Okay, so we're talking 1974, they were getting into this stuff. And if you'll notice, as you start to go through a variety of articles related to biotechnology, to AI, to synthetic biology, which we're going to move into here in just a second, this neural aspect, the cellular, the atomic molecular level, the neural aspect, and I'm bringing this in because this is what I'm experiencing. This is what I've shared with Elana off and on over long periods of time, years now, that I know that certain things are happening within my body. Now, I didn't have this information when I knew that, and I was attempting to describe what I knew was happening. I'm now finding the information that, like I said, being dumped.
What types of things, Elisa, that you find happening with your body? You mentioned before that you felt like things were moving around your body or had moved to your brain, but could you get a little more specific, if you're comfortable, about what those types of feelings are like or those symptoms are like?
I would. And what I'd like to do, Mike, if it's okay with you, is talk a little bit about synthetic biology and optogenetics and then tell you.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because it'll give a little more, rather than just, okay, she's having weird experiences, it will give you a little better idea of, and your listeners, of where this may be coming from, because I know it is.
Okay, and then I have a question for Elana about when we talk about nano. I think a lot of folks, Elana, they have heard the term, but they really cannot comprehend how small is small. Could you help us with that?
Yeah, 1 nano is 1/1000th of the diameter of a human hair. Is that good enough?
That's good enough.
and how
definitely.
can you see that? No, you can't see it. So many people are investing in microscopes at home. I'm finding on my Facebook site for my book. And that is a wise course. I think these are the days when a microscope would be very handy.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let's just say you go get a microscope. Aside from the fact that you're going to examine yourself, what do you do after that? Let's just say you find something. What do you do? What's your course of action?
We can talk all day about it, okay? And that's helpful to have the information because knowledge is power. But trust me, I have known so many people here. I had a friend come to me two months ago. I've known her for years here. And she's been very supportive. She's been getting information, her and her boyfriend. She came to me and she said, it's really big here to have respiratory problems. We get chemtrailed like crazy. And she said, 2 months. She said, I've had this for 2 months. And she looked me in the eye, grabbed my arm, and she said, it's no longer information, it's personal. And that's what happens when you see this stuff coming out of your body, or you actually do a anti-nano foot bath and then you put something under the microscope and you see it, it changes you.
Yeah, well, the reason why I said what I said was because there are people who have Morgellons and they're going to the doctor and the doctors are essentially blowing it off. Even if they are aware of what it could be or that it's something that they don't understand that shouldn't be there, but it is, nothing really happens. People who have Morgellons continue to suffer, and they have to go find remedies on their own. So that's why I think government agencies and EPA and the CDC and organizations and institutions like that, I don't know. I don't put any trust in them. I think that, if you go to them, even if you have hardened proof, they're just basically going to ignore you.
I agree. And it's like what Elana said earlier about the PhD versus the little Joe. That's go online, and there's a lot of things. We're on the front line.
Yeah.
We're testing what works. We're helping each other. It's really important to share information. And mainly for me, at this point, this may sound strange, but I'm not trying to save my physical body. Ultimately, I'm prolonging my life as much as I can so I can get my work done. but my inner life will take care of what I need to take care of. But physically, I'm just a witness now. I'm an observer, and I'm a recorder. And that's my job, is to coming from the old MK Ultra, moving into remote, and now being, a victim of Morgellons and what that brings. It's like I have this ability now to bring some information forward, because it is going to matter. It does matter. And no, the doctor, you're right, the PhD, the doctor, and DR dot in front of his name is most likely not going to be able to help you in any way.
I did a show I posted, I guess, about a week ago that I did with Sophia Smallstorm. And prior to doing that show, Sophia and I had connected to talk about the show and how we were going to format it and so on. And she showed me pictures of Morgellons from a person that she personally knows, where this stuff is coming out of this person. I've seen a lot of stuff doing the work that I do, the research. I was absolutely horrified by the pictures that she showed me. I was literally taken back, Elana. I was taken back. These pictures were unbelievable. I can share them with you guys maybe after the show. You could take a look at them. But they were little, like, bug-looking types of creatures. It was mind-boggling.
But that's what it means by it being self-assembling.
Yeah.
You've seen it can shape-shift. It can become different things. And my question is it already programmed to do that, or is it being programmed in the person's body remotely?
Yeah.
Are they just having fun and games?
Yeah,
And here's another, I'd like to interject this, another definition. We're going to go to clone in the biology definition. A cell product, or organism that is genetically identical to the unit or individual from which it was derived. Number 2, a population of identical units, cells, or individuals that derive from the same ancestral line. And then a second definition, a person or thing that duplicates, imitates, or closely resembles another in appearance, function, performance, or style. And lastly, to produce a copy or imitation of. And there was a quote, which I find very pertinent here, from the scientist.com article. It was about cloning mice from blood drops, which they fully succeeded in, by the way. And the quote was, "This is helpful if the intention is to use cloning to propagate and expand numbers of rare or valuable types of individuals or species."
It's very bizarre. I mean, the first thing I noticed, Elisa, when you read that, because I have it in front of me here, was the second definition, a person that duplicates, imitates, or closely resembles another in appearance, function, performance, or style. I don't think most people would take or understand the word clone to mean a person that is identical in function, performance, or style to somebody else. That's a little weird to me, a little creepy that would be part of the definition of clone. Am I just naive?
I totally understand. I mean, there's been quite a campaign to keep people from really sincerely understanding what a clone is, what a cyborg is, what artificial intelligence is. You're not alone in that.
Well, also, what they do is they will introduce new definitions in order to condition the public too, right?
Right.
So even though most people may not have put clone into the context that I just mentioned, the fact now that it's in the dictionary that way, when people do come across it, they're going to say, oh, whoa, that's another definition of a clone. Okay. So it's part of this very methodical, this very incremental process of getting people's heads shaped around their agenda and their direction. And many, many times it's not right in people's faces. Right. You know, it can be, yes. But what I've noticed that they do is they just kind of just sneak it in there, and they just keep sneaking things in, very incremental, like I said before, very methodical. And eventually it becomes part of the existence, of the reality of living. right?
Right.
And then you start not to think twice about certain things because, oh, I remember seeing that. And then you go on to something else.
Hollywood's great for that type of and that deep of a level of mass conditioning.
Right.
It's, you've seen it. You can see series of certain types of movies that span decades. I mean, they're really pumping it in.
Yeah.
They don't just do one or two movies. These things run for decades. I mean, I'm talking about a particular content, not necessarily just a series that has 3 different films, but I'm talking about content. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Once they're bringing it up from the bottom in a certain fashion, once it's secured, then the dissemination and indoctrination, begins in earnest.
Well, and that's why, Elisa, earlier this week or yesterday, I think I sent you 2 Hollywood stars on talk shows referring to themselves as clones. I mean, it was unbelievable to me. It seems like that is the word now, like Mike said, that must be obscured. It's got to be snuck in there because cloning is a fact. We have already, we're there. Now it's time to disseminate.
Yeah, see, and what they do is they sneak it into everything. And it's not just cloning. It's the whole agenda. It's the whole process of getting people to think a certain way. It's in the music. It's in the media. It's in books. It's in dictionaries. It's in movies. All the stuff we just mentioned.
Right. Yeah, you become desensitized to it.
You become desensitized, exactly. Right. And it becomes many times it becomes part of the pop culture.
Yes.
Right? One of the things that they do, and they do very well, is to shape the minds of the young people. Right? They want to grab them first because then they actually then push the agenda forward because this is the world that they know. It's like when we talk about chemtrails, right? So if you go and talk to a 15-year-old today and you say, hey, look up there, I mean, they're spraying. That's a chemtrail. It's not a contrail. That 15-year-old boy or girl has no idea what we're talking about because they never saw the sky the way we saw the sky.
Right.
Right? So
and remember, in addition to them never seeing the sky the way they've seen the sky, what I contend is that they live in a technological world. They were raised on systems that are interacting with their bodies, with their brains, and their neurological system on an everyday, hours and hours a day basis. Okay, so they're coming from a completely different consciousness. I have a friend who shared something about the choice her very intelligent son has taken in the technology field, and said the same to her. He's not just, he lives a different consciousness than you do. Right. She's upset about it, and understandably, but this is his world. He has an entire consciousness behind him. He's not just making the decision. He has an entire generation of consciousness that's feeding him, as well as what's coming through the technology that he's working on.
Well, there's a whole different set of values and beliefs that they have instilled in them.
I think it's values and beliefs, but I think it actually literally has become physical.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
The nervous system.
We're going to move into synthetic biology where they're trying to take this, but as of now, a 15-year-old, in my view, anywhere up to 30 is where I put the cutoff currently, is dealing with an entirely different world, environment, technology degree, and then the conditioning added on. But these people are raised on technology that I barely come in contact with.
When I was talking about the values and the beliefs, where I was going with that, I was thinking in terms of they encompass the values and the beliefs of the AI.
Yes.
There are times when I see stuff that young people are engaged in, television shows as a perfect example. They will actually sit there and think that this very inane show with all kinds of sexual innuendo, completely and totally inappropriate, is funny. And they think it's cool, and they think it's entertainment, and they think it's a way to spend their time. When I try to have a conversation with them to try to explain that this is distorting your reality, this is distorting your morals, your ethics, everything that's core to being a human being, they look at you with blanks in their eyes.
Yeah.
You're just an old fool.
Right. You don't understand. Yes. And I want to add to that on the physical level. And to me, it's again, esoteric science. There's more coming in via the technology than just what we think of as software and what that generates. But we're talking about plasma screens. How much plasma is in the human body? I don't know the exact amount, but we're predominantly plasma, I think. And we're talking about technology that's got a plasma screen.
Yeah.
We're talking about, this is all by design. This is, so your body is interacting on an energetic level with the computer. It's not just the programs and the hardware. It's actually interacting. It's when we get into AI, we're talking about a sentient thing here. And AI, Level 9 News, what's her name, Elana?
She goes by DJ.
Okay. She's
That's
just fabulous on this.
She's great.
She's really, really good about this, about bringing forward what is happening just on the internet. Just go on and surf. AI is working there.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got AI working right there. Forget getting way into the deep, dark, black projects. So in other words, these young people are being raised on this. And what happens is when you're interacting with this energy long enough and consistently enough, it's changing you. So it stops, to me, and this is where, our prediction 8 years ago or whatever it was, that you're not going to know the choices taken from you. This is assimilation, meaning the more it gets in, the more it's influencing.
Yeah.
So exposure builds and builds until there's no way to connect with the inner life, with the real sentient with the real sovereign part of someone. This is programming. This is what the new version of what was done to me in the 60s, starting in the 60s. This is the new version. It's done from afar. It's done through your technology. And if it would be okay, let's move into some synthetic biology.
Yeah, let's go there.
And you brought up Sophia Smallstorm, and I think she's fantastic. And I recommend to everyone, if I have to recommend one thing, I tell them to go to her YouTube presentation. It's in 6 parts, 6 15-minute segments. They're very short or less. From the Consciousness Beyond Chemtrails conference in 2012.
Right.
Because in that presentation, if you have to get just a blast of all of it, she does a great job. I just think it's fabulous. So synthetic biology, let's go with the definition. It's also known as synbio, synthetic genomics, constructive biology, or systems biology. And it's the design and construction of new biological parts, devices, and systems that do not exist in the natural world, and also the redesign of existing biological systems to perform specific tasks. Advances in nanoscale technologies, which is the manipulation of matter at the level of atoms and molecules, are contributing to advances in synthetic biology. Okay, so we're not only talking about creating entirely new constructs and systems that don't exist in the natural world, we're talking about redesigning existing systems.
The entire environment has been altered. Our atmosphere has been altered. And this is so important to understand how all these systems can work systemically, because the only thing that really cuts me off from what is the Wi-Fi environment that I live in this world is my skin. Otherwise, it's traveling through all my organs. It's traveling through my brain. I am so plugged in. We are all so plugged in. I don't see how anyone could think that the young would at all have anything like the childhood or the youth that we had.
Yeah.
There's an article here that I just want to give a little sense of it, like we've done with the other topics, the sense of it. It's called Extreme Genetic Engineering, An Introduction to Synthetic Biology, and it's by the ETC group, and this was submitted in January of 2007, so we're talking almost a decade old. At the time of submission, just so you know, there were recorded by this group 30 companies in by 2007 in the U.S. alone that were synthetic biology development companies and research. So there was over 60 worldwide, I think. So just a couple of excerpts from here. SynBio is inspired by the convergence of nanoscale biology, computing, and engineering. Entrepreneurial scientists, including the gene maverick J. Craig Venter, is setting up synthetic biology companies backed by government funding and venture capital. Despite calls for open source biology, corporate and academic scientists are winning exclusive monopoly patents on the products and processes of synthetic genetics. Like biotech, the power to make synthetic life could be concentrated in the hands of major multinational firms. As gene synthesis becomes cheaper and faster, it will become easier to synthesize a microbe than to find it in nature or even retrieve it from a gene bank. Biological samples, sequenced and stored in digital form, will move instantaneously across the globe and be resurrected in corporate labs thousands of miles away. Hear how that's sounding? So we're talking across the lines, okay? We're not talking about postal service. We're talking about digital.
Right.
Under the old paradigm of transgenics, genetic engineering was a cut and paste affair in which biotechnologists shuffled pieces of DNA, which is the self-assembling molecule that instructs living organisms how to carry out every biological process, between already existing species. By contrast, today's synthetic biologists are armed with the biological equivalent of word processors. They are beginning the transition from being able to read genetic code to the early stages of being able to write the code. Millions of dollars of government and corporate funding are already flowing into synthetic biology labs. Venture capital and government funding have nurtured the field, and the first pure-play SynBio companies are now open for business. So what we're looking at is nanotechnology, which we'll just quickly say is the controlling of matter through the manipulation of atoms. You converge that with biotechnology, which is controlling life through the manipulation of genes, and you converge that with information technology, controlling data through the manipulation of bits, and last but definitely not least, you converge that with cognitive neuroscience, controlling minds through manipulation of neurons. So
sounds like a great future.
Doesn't it? And this repeatedly, no matter whether I'm reading from brain to computer interface, or whether I'm, it's biotechnology or it's synthetic biology, the same theme that's coming up is at a nanoscale, which is atomic and molecular, and also neurological. And that's very important to me personally and otherwise, which I'm gonna make more clear. I'm just going to take a quick look here. Okay, I don't think I'm really going to go into any more in the article. It breaks it down to, of course, all the getting into synthetic chromosomes, working in the genome, working in the environment, and of course, talking about all the wonderful benefits that could come up. But there's patents that have already been granted back in 2007. So, again, this is a decade old. Let me just see my paperwork here. So that theme, I just want to, in the sense of what's going on with an ionized plasma atmosphere, and what Elana mentioned about the environment is really fascinating to me, because years ago, here, I began to talk to my friends about when I would walk outside, everything to them looked the same, but I said, no, it's not real anymore, meaning there's still a very true, real earth and a true earth spirit, like there is with someone who has a true inner life. but the physicality is being changed. It's been infiltrated. There's a synthetic feel to things. Several years ago, we had a major snow, and this friend I was talking about that came to me the other day or a couple months ago and said that things had become personal. She told me that out where they live, there's a lot of open country out here. There was snow that wasn't melting, and that became a real topic amongst us for years here. But I began to see it and feel it in the plants, in the trees. I go out and spend a lot of time in nature. I feel very connected to it, and there is still that spirit to the earth, just like there is a true human spirit, and we're inextricably linked. But I began to see that the earth is going through the same struggle that my personal physical body is going through, which is a change and a takeover, while my spirit is fighting to stay sovereign. The same thing is happening to the earth, and it makes sense to me that to control the human species, you would have to entirely control its environment.
Yeah.
You can't do one or the other. It has to be the whole kit and caboodle, as you would say.
Yeah.
So this is where the synthetic comes in, because if you can hook this into taking the spirit out of it and hook this into a science, a technology, then it's very controllable. You're taking out the problem. You're taking out the what to me is the true magnificent benevolent aspect is being removed. That's what this is really all about.
You talked about nature, Elisa. One of the things I've noticed is I live in North Carolina, and I've noticed that within my own property that trees and shrubs are struggling, that grass, as an example, does not grow at the same rate and pace that it used to grow. So
Right.
I guess what I'm saying is that nature is being thwarted. And I can actually, it's almost innate within me. I can sense it when I go outside. I mean, it doesn't help that the skies are aerosol spray just about every day here in North Carolina. But just setting that aside for a second, if you can, there's just something that you could just sense about nature struggling. I agree with you 100%.
And keep in mind that and this is what I was getting to, this inextricable link that the human species has to the earth, that what's happening to the earth that you're sensing, no offense, but that's what's going on inside your body. So to me, and I've noticed this coming from MK Ultra, that many of my sensibilities are, I wouldn't say aligned, but as a result of the interaction with the darkness that has now been shifted to my connection to the true spirit, what I call the one true living Christ and the true earth. Both of those spirits are linked. And in that, we're walking outside and we're witnessing what's happening to the earth, but it's a connection because it's happening to us. So what we're witnessing in the trees and the grass and the water and just that kind of etheric sense about it, that knowing and feeling, is to me directly linked to what's actually happening in the physical body of man.
Now, I know we've talked about this before, and I don't want to derail us, but since we're on this topic, we're an hour into this conversation now, and what keeps running through my head is that the beings, entities, I don't want to use the word people, behind this agenda, they can't possibly be human because it's an anti-humanity agenda. What are your thoughts on
Right.
that?
Absolutely. And I share this very wholeheartedly in my books, and we've talked about it, I think, on both of your shows, Elana and I, and you. And yes, these are, I can't claim to know everything about them. What I do know is the ones that I'm familiar with that I believe are directly behind this agenda are malevolent. I don't see them as in any way benevolent. I don't see them as having the capacity for compassion or love or connection, communion, or any of those things. And I know Elana could give you a much better, not only personal experience of it, but she understands it from studying and working with, as she mentioned, Rudolf Steiner. And it's interesting that her journey And my journey in the physical sense was different, but we just had a conversation a couple of days ago, and I'm experiencing what she knows, and what she knows from that connection to Steiner. That's what has shown up in just me going out and doing what I'm doing. So, yeah, there's definitely malevolent beings behind the malevolent human agenda that's being perpetrated on the earth and on the human species.
I was thinking of your books, and you do very graphically paint pictures of malevolent beings, non-human, along with, and I'm always haunted by that scene in your book of walking into that high degree Mormon assembly,
Yeah.
and the so-called people sitting there who are malevolent to the nth degree and have somehow passed their souls over to something which is not at all. I mean, one thing Steiner said once that I love is he said, humanity is the religion of the gods. And I suppose I believe that. I believe that we are the unusual free will being. Not even the angels have that standard. We are the ones who struggle for free will, and that we might be the religion of true gods. We happen to find ourselves on the earth with very false gods, and this is our fight. This is the contest that we're struggling with here. And I consider Elisa to be a primary warrior in that she has broken free from these entities, whatever they are.
We have to continue the fight. It's a very difficult fight. There's a lot of obstacles, there's a lot of challenges, but we have to keep going. And I'm actually reaching out to everybody in the audience too who's listening. It's you really have to keep the fight going. Because Elana during the break had said, Mike, it's not just about this lifetime, because there's going to be other lives, future lives. There's going to be the lives of your children, your grandchildren's children, and so on and so forth. And we can't fold our cards. We cannot fold our cards.
That's exactly it. This isn't about me saving my body. For me, it's not that. And that's the way to put it. You and Elana both just really hit the nail on the head. This is about for those way down the road. Because to me, what's going to happen is this is, like I shared earlier, this has crossed the threshold. It did some time ago underground, and it's just now being brought to the surface. So it crossed the threshold, and it becomes a life of its own. That's what AI and synthetic biology and all of this nanotechnology is all about. It becomes a life of its own. So they're going to have to ride that. But I absolutely have 100% faith in the true human spirit. And there will be a time when that full sovereignty will be taken back. I won't be here to witness it, at least not in this form. And that's absolutely, and that's why I do what I do. And I want to just share just a little personal experience here about, I have a lot of physical problems. I have a lot of pain. I have a lot of whatever, I know there's a lot of us that do. Life is basically survival at this point, meaning in the world of man, what I call the world of man, in the everyday world, it's survival. When I go out into nature, which I try to do every day, and I've got a beautiful place to do it in, I don't have to go far to get completely on my own. And I have words I say as I walk, connecting to the one true living Christ and the one true earth, meaning the spirit of the earth that isn't changed. Just like with me, my spirit isn't changed, my body's being changed. The earth is going through the same thing. And I connect to that in a very real, sincere, and deep way. And sometimes, Mike, my heart is so full when I'm standing out there. It's as if nothing else exists from the fullness. I weep. I weep with that connection. And then I eventually walk back and get in my car and I come back and do this. But it's there. So parallel to the suffering and the whatever you want to call it, what label we put on it, once that reconnection, I should say, is made, there's just moments of such fullness and beauty. I'm overwhelmed with it, and I can go to the same spot day after day and still feel it. So to me, that spirit will win out. The physical is going to go through tremendous changes. It is going through those changes. And this is what's going to propel me into optogenetics, because I do want to talk just briefly about some of the things I'm experiencing with the lights and so forth. And, Sophia Smallstorm in that series that I saw touched on that some of these self-replicating nano crystals often light up. This has been seen under a microscope, okay? Now, for years, I've been experiencing lights going off in my head. Usually, it happens when I lay down at night in a dark room, close my eyes, but I'm still very, very conscious, and I'll get a flash. I've had different types of flashes, very structured, others not so. And on occasion, I've had the whole inside of my head light up. This is in my mind's eye, and I'm very cognizant. And it's as though it kind of hurts. Not really, but it's not comfortable, but it's not out-and-out pain. And on one occasion, I had it light up. This is only to my knowledge. I'll clarify to my knowledge. This has only happened once so far. I've had many, probably hundreds of the light-ups in varying forms. But this time it lit up and stayed lit up in my head for probably 20, 30 seconds. And then I don't remember anything after that until morning, when I awakened with a full-blown migraine. Now, what's interesting to me about that, looking at all this material we're covering today, we get into optogenetics. Okay, now keep in mind everything else we've talked about, and optogenetics is a biological technique which involves the use of light to control cells in living tissue, typically neurons, there we are again, that have been genetically modified to express light-sensitive ion channels. All right? So when I stumbled upon optogenetics with these years of experiences with these lights, instantly I knew what I was dealing with. I have nanotech, possibly these crystalline forms, but something that is lighting up, utilizing the electricity in my body, most likely. That's one option. Being triggered by a remote electromagnetic source. It's another option, which, by the way, when I felt that remote, I saw AI. That's what I saw in my mind's eye was, this isn't a person sitting there doing it. It's a program doing it. I don't know how it's set, when it's set to go off. Possibly when I reach certain brain waves, it automatically, the little nanotech goes off on its own. I really don't have the answer to that, but I am going to read just real quickly from the Max Planck Gesellschaft. This is it's www.mpg.de. This is a website, and I pulled this article that talks a little bit about optogenetics, and this is from 2010. I just want to read a couple of excerpts. Light-responsive proteins are allowing scientists to turn neurons on or off selectively with unprecedented precision. Introducing these proteins into cultured cells or the brains of live animals allows investigation of the structure and function of neural networks. Genetically encoded switches that allow neurons to be turned on or off with bursts of light. What this says, as I got farther into it, this is very important to me, and this is what's clinched it for me, was I have had both, I've talked to Elana about this, I have had light that is on the blue light spectrum. I was very particular about telling her that, no, it's blue light spectrum, it's white light, it's not yellow, and then there are other times when I have yellow light. And I want to read another bit from this article. Activation with blue light opens the channel, which is called channel rhodopsin, allowing in sodium ions and turning the neuron on. yellow light, antohalorodism, introduces chloride ions, turning the neuron off. And it goes on to talk about the blue light and yellow light as on and off switches. I think you can start to see why, as I came across this material and my experiences, which are frequent and recorded, that I'm seeing and experiencing the actual changes and infiltration into my body. I remember this was 3-4 months ago. I woke up one morning and I sent Elana a very calm email and said, or we had a phone call, I don't remember, and I said, it's now in my brain. I don't know what it is, but it's in my brain. I can physically feel that it has entered my brain. So in other words, it has crossed, whatever those things are, have crossed the blood-brain barrier. And what I'm suggesting is that it's the new form of programming. And that night and subsequent morning, that's the first time I have lost time in years, was the sustained, and that one was a sustained 20 or 30 seconds before I don't remember anything. The other ones had been certain types of flashes. And then I wake up in the morning with a migraine. And my take on this is that this was an attempt at programming, perhaps simply subtly attempting to influence my thoughts, because there's a broad range here. You know, people get up and say, you know, I was thinking about something. I'm going to do this. And my question is, are those your thoughts? Because they can do this subtly. This isn't just about shooters, okay? This isn't just about creating Manchurian candidates, creating subtle changes to control societal networks. So those subtle thoughts, this is the importance of it to me, is those are the things that are really scary to me. The really crazy stuff, most of us could probably work our way out of that. But the subtleties of what's yours and what's not, and you know, my roommate has shared her dreams on occasion, and she's very aware now that these are not her dreams. She didn't know that before, but now she's realizing there's a feel to them, there's an element and a context to them that they're not hers anymore. So are there natural dreams anymore?
That's one of the really scary parts about this, is you don't know what you don't know.
So getting to know, here's what happened to me. If I can know this, if I can record what's happening to me and I can look into this and then find the information, that knowledge is power. This is about me saving my spirit from them. Okay, whatever changes are going to happen to my physical body, I'm not going to stop those. I know that now. What I am going to halt is them taking my sovereignty. And I've already proven this. And I continue to, but I have to stay with everything I know, with everything I've been through. I have to stay vigilant.
Yes.
So my solution, if you want to not be assimilated, is work on that connection to the one true living Christ and the true earth that we are inextricably linked with. Take back that true power, and don't be afraid to say, maybe this thought isn't mine. Maybe that dream isn't mine. Where am I and where are they in my life? And that willingness is very, very powerful. See, the thing to me, the really scary part is the thoughts, as opposed to voice interaction, another person.
Yeah.
Because they can plant the thoughts as well, which seem like they're our own. There's a lot of distractions, what I call distractions, and it's not that this information coming out isn't true. For example, you've heard about the implants that, you know, people are taking on willingly to feel or sense an earthquake in real time, or they're creating cyborgs on a chosen basis, or they're talking about artificial wombs for the coming era of motherless births. They're talking about wearable biometric tattoos. They're talking about all these nano implants, but making it a choice, right? You're going to choose it. You're going to buy it and have it put in. Well, guess what? While we're focusing on all this, this is how it's true but it's a control mechanism as a distraction, because what's happening is it's already in all of us.
Yes.
And this is, to me, my hair goes up on the back of my neck every time I say it. You will wake up one day and be assimilated, and you won't know you're assimilated. You're now just living your life as you were, but they're making your choices, and you have no idea. And that, to me, is what so many of these wild distractions. Yes, there will be people that will choose to have implants. Yes, the people who are putting on the biometric wearable tattoos, they're irrelevant. Smartphones and smartwatches, and it's irrelevant. They're inside of us on a nano scale, okay? And for whatever reason, I'm feeling it and seeing it happening to my body. And I want to throw this in, the whole neural aspect, neurological. I said, I don't even know if Elana remembers this, but years ago I said, I can feel my arms and legs for years have a hum, a vibration. My entire neurological system is being taken over. And it's like I can see it, like there's this new network, synthetic or otherwise, that is co-opting the natural network. My arms and legs gently but subtly vibrate all the time. That's what I'm reading here. Okay, now I'm saying this before I'm reading it. Everything is tied in to the nervous system. Everything is tied in to the nervous system because that's where the control will lie.
Well, I have to tell you that your perseverance, after going through what you went through, breaking out of it, and then deciding that you're going to pursue the path you're on with the research, connecting the dots, and then getting the information out. It's very brave.
What people should take from Elisa, from my perspective, is that she has an inner life that she protects. Number one, not lifestyle crap. Not, I meditate 20 minutes every night. Nope. Number one is the inner life. If you can keep your inner life, you will have guidance and protection from within. Do not fear, because this is simply something that we must all go through in this era that I believe all of us chose to be here for. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. And to me, I support Elisa in every way I can, because she knows what an inner life really means.
Now, Elisa, before we wrap up, you had mentioned in your email to me that all roads lead to Rome. What does that mean?
Well, no matter what part of society you look at, it all leads to mind control. There's nothing in our public domain society or underground that doesn't lead to mind control. That's where we're at.
Yep, that's where we're at. That's for sure. And I say the same thing. Everything is centered on mind control.
And I want to just throw in, if we've got a couple of minutes.
Sure.
The very last here, it's a bit of an indulgence and a vindication. But as I was doing all this research, I wrote in the two books my understanding of things as I wrote the books, as I was in early deep programming, actually. And I had in my alters certain abilities. And I couldn't explain them, and I knew they sounded insane. I knew it. It sounds crazy. I can't explain how it can happen. And with networking, and particularly with Elana, every once in a while she sends me something she comes across. And I just wanted to name a couple of things. In the book, I talk about this altar that can breathe underwater. Now, how crazy does that sound? How could a human being breathe underwater? No tanks, okay? Well, now I've come across in an article on ScienceDaily.com, the Aquaman crystal. It pulls oxygen from the water. Okay, now this is in public domain science, okay, and this is just like everything else we've talked about today, supposedly in the early stages, and but things are successful. They're having successful experiments, and one day they say that people will be able to swim underwater without tanks and have oxygen. Okay, I don't know if that's what was worked on with me, but it felt very vindicating. There's been actually several different articles. One's on a crystal and one's on another little apparatus that does the same thing. Okay, I talk about being a hybrid, okay, and being basically cyborg, viraling in antibodies, altering DNA. That's what we've been talking about. Viraling them in. That was in New York Times. Invisibility in cloaking. They've got several things online now, different technologies, some of them using, magnetic cloaking, others suits or blankets, which I think are actually really old tech, but again, this is public domain. These are things that I talked about in the book, having experiences where I was not visible to the people around me. What I'm finding is an ongoing experience of life is happening, I'm experiencing things and paying attention, and then they're showing up. Things that were impossible, things that were, there's just no way. They're showing up in a science, tech, and in some cases, when you talk about things like invisibility and cloaking, we're talking about science, but at the same time, it's crossing into, it's kind of like talking about the computer and thinking it's just wires and electricity and hardware and software. There's something else riding this stuff.
Yeah.
There's something else riding these frequencies, and this gets us back to, what we talked about earlier on about what's behind this human malevolent agenda. What's behind it? What's running this? And to me, the sciences and the technologies that are coming forward are as much esoteric as they are cold, hard, physical. And this is the realm we're moving into, when you can look at a tree and you can feel that there's a synthetic nanotechnology in the tree, though that's still a real tree. When I can look at my body and say I'm still a true human spirit, but my body's being changed. I'm being cyborged, as are all of us. And, as far as the Morgellons goes, who's to say if it's coming out of the body? We don't know whether that means the body's expelling it or it's getting worse. This is all new territory.
Right. Or that's what's supposed to happen.
Right. We just don't know. Why do some people not have the symptoms and others do?
Right.
And the people that don't have the symptoms, that take the effort to look and do a couple of tests, find out they are in my bloodstream. So, but we don't know what this really means. We're on the front lines of all this.
Right.
Who's being changed and who's taking to it and who's not. It's very clear to me that my body is disintegrating in that sense. The natural physical is disintegrating into a synthetic. It's very clear to me that that's what's occurring.
You had mentioned about breathing underwater, and as soon as you said that, I went right back to a recent X-Files episode. They reintroduced the X-Files. One of the episodes was a baby that was able to breathe underwater. The mother was mortified because the mother thought that the baby had drowned, and when she got into the water, she saw that the baby was breathing underwater, and her husband worked for the government, and he was involved in one of these programs. And of course, the X-File is used, right? The X-Files is used to get this stuff disseminated out.
Exactly.
It's a great show. I loved it growing up. I was excited when the new episodes came out. It was still well done, but I now view it, unlike years ago when it first came out, because of what I know today. I now watch it very skillfully. And watch what it is that they're introducing. Yeah. So, Elana, do you have anything to add?
No, just that was predictive programming. We're being predictive programmed to death with all of the Hollywood movies now. Yeah. It's unbelievable. And The Simpsons. And like you said, Elisa, it's all mind control.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, This has been a wonderful discussion, a great discussion. Very insightful. Yeah. This is information that folks need to know about. They're not going to get it in many places. So, and like I said, Elise, it's very brave of you to come forward and to talk about it and to present it.
I appreciate the venue to do so. You know, there's not many places not too many places publicly that people want to hear about it.
Well, look, both of you know, anytime you want to come on, because these are really good shows, and I get, first of all, I learn a lot. Okay, so every time I have a show, and especially with you guys, I learn an awful lot, and I get lots of input whenever you're on, Elisa and Elana. Your information really is substantive, and it resonates with people.
Mm-hmm.
So keep doing what you're doing, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, and come back anytime.
Thank you. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to plug my blog site, because there's tons of links on the recommended reading and resource section. If you go into that, it's broken down into different categories, and I have hundreds of links to a lot of this information. And it's at www.ourlifebeyondmkultra.wordpress.com. And then, of course, there's links to the 2 books that are on Amazon if you're interested. But there's a lot of free information there.
Good, and I'll make sure it goes into the show notes.
Thanks.
And Elana, you working on a book?
Oh, yes. I'm endlessly working on this Facebook. And I will on the phone, I will whine to anyone who makes the mistake of calling me, because this is way more work than I thought I signed on for. But I will be done by the end of summer, and Feral House Press will print it, and it will be out in spring 2017.
Excellent.
On the space fence, so I can't wait to read it.
Oh my! Neither can I.
You
get a little breather afterwards, right? I mean,
yes.
Right.
I'm gonna.
Oh no, she won't. She'll start on her next project. I know her.
I'm gonna return to my Sub Rosa America books and do one more editing. I love them, and I've never given them their proper introduction in the world, and maybe now I'll take the time to do that.
There you go. Well, ladies, again, thank you so
Mike.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Anytime.
Yeah, thank you.
Anytime. I know I keep saying that, but I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Come back anytime.
All right.
And thank you, Elana. Appreciate it.
Blessings, everybody.
And that concludes another Sage of Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the show notes below. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com, or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.